Alright, and we are live. Alright, so this is regarding the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company case study. And just a quick rundown of what's happening. We have James McBride, who has been chosen as the manager of the new building opening up in Washington, D.C. Unique to this hotel this time is that it's a partnership with Millennial Partners, and they are a high-end condominium real estate agency, and so they try to draw appeal for their customers by putting their condominiums atop of a glamour 5-star, 5-diamond hotel, such as either the Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons. And representing them is Brian Collins, who is managing this side of their company. Upon opening in a short time, the Ritz-Carlton has a tradition of having a 7-day countdown where they do a mass training of all their new employees of what's expected to be a lady and a gentleman to the future customer ladies and gentlemen of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. And Brian Collins is a bit concerned with this timely manner and wishes it should be extended a bit. And so now James McBride finds himself in the position of, does he change something that could affect or alter the tradition of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, or does he keep things the way they are and try to work things out with Brian that way? Going forward, just to give you guys a heads up of what's expected, we need to establish if your opinions are, so here's the questions we need to answer. So I'm going to give this to you now so you can kind of think about your answers. If you decide that you feel they should keep it as is, then we are looking for what expectations do you think customers have for the Ritz-Carlton that has just opened? How much training should we do on the job? Do you really want to be learning at the expense of your customers? Why is Collins pushing for a longer time frame? And what should the 700 million buy in way of influence? So that's if you feel they should keep things the way they are. And then on the other end, if you feel they should change and that it should be lengthened, how much time do you think it would take to get staff ready to handle 80% occupancy? How should you know you are there? Do you think you can maintain momentum for that long? How would you do it? Are there other ways that staff could get experience without delaying the opening? So those are the two targets that we're trying to figure out. Do we change it or do we stay with the way it is?
All right.
So you want us to kind of respond to that now then?
Yep, feel free.
Sure. Yeah, so I was just thinking, basically my stance on it was to keep it as is. I think there's definitely some things you could do better, but I guess I'll talk about the expectations first, like that customers have. Of course, if I was going to Ritz-Carlton, I'd have pretty high expectations. Just expecting, I guess, overall that the facilities themselves be really well maintained. I'm not sure how I'd feel towards the actual service providers, like the people that are either going to be cleaning or serving you. I would expect greatness from them, but I honestly can't say that my expectations would be, above like a pleasurable, I guess, cordial experience, and so that's why part of the reason why I feel like the 7 days is long enough is that, it's been tried and proven in many other locations, as the case kind of stated. And then as far as learning at the expense of your customers, I just feel like they do have a sense of trust instilled in them during the I guess during their kind of orientation. And I feel like they do a really good job of putting it into practice, having them actually serve, their peers or their leaders. And so I feel like that's a pretty good indicator of how they're going to do, when it comes time to actually be helping their customers out. So that's yeah, those are the bigger reasons why I thought they should keep it as is. And then I guess just as for Collins pushing for a longer time, I could see how, it's different when something becomes your baby. I guess I think you would tend to be a little more, you'd have things a little more. Um, you'd want them more tightly controlled, and especially for me, I would, I'd want more control over those things, and I'd be, skeptical of things and trying to improve them. But as far as that goes, I think he just has to realize, it's been a successful chain around the globe, and it's a 5-star hotel chain for a reason. So I think just basically he's just worried, as it is his investment that's on the line. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey, real quick too, here's some things to consider while we discuss this. What is it that makes the Ritz-Carlton so unique? What is its competitive advantage? What are they selling that makes them desirable? Josh, you mentioned how in order for, if you were to go there, you'd have high expectations. So for the sake of this recording, can you share real quick, what is it that would present high expectations?
So what makes me think of those high expectations? Is that your question?
Yeah, right. What's associated with Ritz-Carlton that creates that association?
Okay, I guess well, one of the first things I think of is just the price point. I'd expect to pay quite a bit more than any other hotel, and so I guess just directly associated with that is having more of a luxurious experience as far as the kinds of sheets you're going to be sleeping on, the type of bed, and then of course the type of service that you get at staying at one of their restaurants, as well as the type of food. So I guess just an overall heightened luxury to it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
So I found a Forbes article about how it's entitled how the Ritz-Carlton stays at the top, and he says that they focus on 3 fundamentals. First, location, making sure we get absolutely the best location where our luxury customers want to stay. Second is the product, building the right physical product for what our guests want and what they will want tomorrow, which means an investment between $500,000 and over $1 million per room. Okay, so that's the platform. The third is people. The third people are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. They animate the platform. But you must get the first 2 right. If you're not right in location, and if you're not, if you don't have the right physical product, then the ladies and gentlemen can only do so much. So the ladies and gentlemen's kind of the cherry on the milkshake, so to speak. It's the thing that kind of just finishes it all off. But the foundation of the right location, best location, with serious investment in luxury, and then the ladies and gentlemen just kind of bring it all to life. They animate it. I like the word that he uses. He says they animate the platform. So they bring it to life. They bring a storybook experience into everyday real life, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. So, in my case study, I was a little bit torn between, do they keep it as is or should it be lengthened? Because I look at it and I think, Collins, he works with not only the Ritz-Carlton, but he also works with their number 1 competitor, the Four Seasons. So he has insights into how the competition, who is extremely accomplished, also does things. You know what I mean? So my thought processes really revolve around, I don't know if it should be changed, but man, it would be good to kind of get them locked in a room, have them both put all their ideas down, see where they actually maybe are exactly the same, and then also see where the process can be improved. I think that constant, never-ending improvement is what makes companies grow. I think when you stop improving, you begin to decline after time. So I think that his $700 million at least buys him opportunity to sit down and at least have that conversation. It doesn't necessarily buy him influence in the way of you're going to make this change. I don't care what you think. So, I mean, I do think it's worth something. As far as how much time do you think it would take to get the staff ready to handle 80% occupancy? It may take 2 months to get them ready for that, which is fine because the hotel doesn't typically open up at 80% occupancy, so it builds to that. They overstaff with the anticipation that eventually they'll get to that 80% occupancy. So, to me, I don't think 7 days, 10 days training, 14 days training, I don't think any of that's going to really make that big of a difference.
Right.
There's certain things that you just have to learn on the job. You can't train for everything without actually doing it at some point in time. So that's what I think about that. And then what was the other question you asked? I don't remember now. That might be all.
Later when I was talking to Josh, or before we started?
Just any of them. I was putting my thoughts together while Josh was talking, so I shouldn't have done that. I should have paid you more attention, Josh.
It's all right.
No, you're good. I know, that's great that you shared that article by Forbes. It touched on some highlights for sure. So I appreciate that. I'll share mine. I know for me, I chose to keep things the way they are for the sake of going back to what we learned about the speed of trust. In this instance, kind of Josh talked about it as well. There's credibility here. This is a system that's been tried and true. That's why they continue to implement it. It's been working. And so I think there's a matter of just sitting down with Brian, Mr. Collins, and saying, hey, I understand your concern. I know you'd like to see things ready to go a little bit sooner, and I understand that. Here's why we do what we do, and it's working. You've chosen to partner up with Ritz-Carlton because of what we have to offer. Well, this is a part of it. And so I'm asking you to have some faith in this as we move forward, knowing that this is what we do. We've been doing it, it works, and we're going to continue to do it. So I think that's just an element of it in regards to Collins maybe needing to have a little bit more trust, saying, here's why they've been successful. This is a part of it. The other thing is, I don't know what Collins sees being done differently to get 80% occupancy out the gate and running. Like you said, that hasn't happened. They start out closer to 50% and grow from there. I don't think there's reason to believe it's going to change. Again, if there was, then they would prepare for it. The other thing that I'll touch on, I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to do like week-long leadership camps, perhaps something like I can't think what it's called. I mean, you guys can recall scout camps, different things like that, and the way you potentially come back from those opportunities, so that I don't know about you guys. I know it was for me. I came back invigorated, ready to go. I was motivated, pumped, and I think it's the same effect when they do these mass trainings the way they do it. I mean, it's just jam-packed, and the name evades me at the time, but the upper management of the Ritz-Carlton, he talks about the importance of doing that because it creates an emotional experience, and when it does that, that's what causes people to change. If they don't have this overwhelming experience, it's not enough to cause them to change. So recognizing that, having been through it myself, I continue to see this through all sorts of leadership camps. They continue to do the same method. They only do it a week long, jam-packed, full activity. And if that system of training wasn't working, the whole world would have changed that by now. But we still see that kind of training done today.
I kind of like.
Hey, Dallin.
Oh, hey. I don't know if you guys know I've been here, but
We do. We hear you. So we're
yeah,
just
this is
talking
Alex.
about, do we keep it as is, or do we change it, or is it kind of a hybrid, kind of in between? And then I don't know
Mhm.
when you got on, but we were talking about, kind of. I actually opened up the some of the questions just so I could kind of remember all that you were asking, Ben. But
Mhm.
um, I shared just an article about the Ritz-Carlton. I don't know when you got on, Dallin.
I got in like 8 minutes after it started. I was having some internet problems, but so I've heard most everyone's comments. Um, I I think the only thing with them is really pounded in like is and their goals are with money and like these are his own goals. So was what was most something need to be changed because he really just treated super well the very lowest, like the employees that the customers would be interacting with. But it's just so interesting that it was just completely different the way he trained the managers and supervisors on really just pounding in the goals and the yeah. I was wondering what you guys thought about that. If that was anything that should be changed.
I saw that. I saw that in the case study too, where Schultz, the COO and president, talked with the whole group, right? And he kind of tells the story about the ladies and gentlemen. But then when he gets the managers separated, it becomes all about the dollars and cents. And, if we go with this number of rooms not sold out, this is how much money it cost. And, so in one speech, he's kind of talking about the experience. In another speech, he's talking about, we're here to make money, and he's kind of breaking it down for him. I think that's cool that he does that, though. I really like how he goes through step by step and shows them what happens to an unsold room night after night, So I don't think it takes away from the message of creating that animated platform of, ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. But it kind of, I think it's kind of cool that he shares that much insight into the business with his managers. I think it shows a high level of trust. Some companies at that low of a level wouldn't even talk about the dollars and cents with those people, because they think, they don't need to know it. If we can just get them to do the ladies and gentlemen part, that's enough. But, I felt like it actually shows a pretty high level of trust for him to break it all the way down to that level, for even the position of supervisor.
That's a good point, Adam. Thanks for sharing that.
In this
Dallin,
same art, in this
go ahead.
same article, they ask this guy, what's the key to building a successful corporate culture? And the answer, he says, is a culture is built on trust. And if leadership doesn't live the values that it requires of the organization, that is the swiftest way to undermine the culture. No culture sticks if it's not lived at the highest levels of the organization. It takes an extraordinary long time to build a culture. And, in the case study, when you look at the message that Schultz comes out, I mean, clearly he lives that culture. I mean, they said that he came out like a rock star. People are giving him a standing ovation, and I mean, his reputation precedes him, right? And then he delivers that awesome message that's in the case study. So, and I believe if I'm remembering right, he was president and COO of Ritz-Carlton. That's unusual. How often do you see the president of a big company like that?
Right. Like you said, though, that's just an element to contribute to what makes the Ritz-Carlton so unique compared to others. Adam, if you get a chance, can you help me? I'm trying to look up to find out what the Ritz-Carlton decided to do, if it kept the 7-day countdown or not. Everything I keep finding is just more Harvard Business Studies.
Yeah, I was trying to look that up too. Interesting. I don't know. I don't see anything right offhand. It'd be nice if they just included a link.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Did you
I would
guys
have.
did you guys do any independent research on this and see um, what they ended up doing?
I didn't know.
No.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that kind of gives a result. I'm seeing a lot of reviews of the case study.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all I'm finding as well.
I don't ever. Do you guys ever look? I don't ever research these case studies like that. I probably should.
Well, I don't. Well, I know we've tried in the past, and I wasn't able to find results. Like I know we talked about the results for the rowing one for the Army, and couldn't really find it. Oh, you, Adam, you later found what happened. Adam or Josh, one of you found out what happened there at least. But there's been other
Oh,
times
right.
we've had other cases, and I haven't found the results.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes they do post it in this like little discussion. Uh, yeah, this discussion kind of board we use, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how they did in this time.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't see anything. I don't know how to.
Well, it's frustrating because, like you said, there's been other cases where it's just a part of the leader instructions, like the information, what happened, and other times it's not, and it's kind of frustrating. Yeah, it literally just tells me research and find out what the results were. Find from other articles that give insight, and I'm not even seeing articles.
Yeah. Yeah, most of them are just people's like Prezi or
Right.
whatever. They're
So, Dallin, what was your opinion? Did you feel that they should keep things the way they were, or should they lengthen it?
I think they should have kept things the way they were. It seems like it'd be scary for any business starting out, and so I think it was just, if it's something that worked in other hotels, I think they were going to be okay.
I mean, it's done very well. I mean, you can just research the Ritz-Carlton DC, and I mean it's highly rated. It's one of the top hotels in its class. I mean, so it's thrived. I mean, it's a 5-star hotel. I mean, so if you just research that property, it's been amazing, for the Ritz-Carlton brand. So what they decided to do as far as did they change the 7-day, I got to think that at this point in time, reading the case study and when the opening was, I don't even know if there was time to change the 7-day countdown. So
Right, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
yeah, if anything, maybe they could change the 7-day countdown for a future property, right? But I don't know if they even had time to make adjustments. Reading the case study, it seemed like it was going to be opening like within a week of when that case study was done.
The training was starting now.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you read just articles about the Ritz-Carlton, Washington, D.C., number 8 in best D.C. hotels, I mean, it's offers no sorts of elegance. I mean, it's done well. I mean, it's a really good property.
Awesome, thank you, Adam. That at least helps confirm some stuff, I guess.
Yeah. So this is just a travel website that I was looking at, that talked about, the Ritz-Carlton. But, like I said, as far as a review on the actual case study, I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's okay then for now. I don't want to just keep drawing on. Does anyone have any final comments then?
I look at it and I think, what was this week about? So the topics that they said we'd be learning this week, I always find it interesting, what it is that we say we're supposed to be studying. So this week it said we're supposed to be studying innovation, leadership, values, standardized quality versus empowered employees. And, I would think that you can look at the Ritz-Carlton and think, man, look at somebody who has great standardized quality, and they don't really, it's not versus empowered employees, they do just straight up empower their employees. In that Forbes article, it says that, this I thought was pretty remarkable. He says we entrust every single Ritz-Carlton staff member without approval from their general manager to spend up to $2,000 on a guest. That's not per year, it's per incident. When you say up to $2,000, suddenly somebody says, wow, this isn't just about rebating a movie because your room was late. This is a really meaningful amount. I mean, so I just look at a company like this and I think, man, how awesome it is that rather than trying to create red tape and bureaucracy and oversight and lots of rules and regulation that keeps them from being able to deliver an experience, they empower them. I would love to see a statistic of how often they actually have someone spend $2,000 on a guest. I bet it's very little. I bet the fact that people feel empowered, they actually make up for it through their actions. And because the customer can sense that they're empowered, that's enough. They don't need the monetary value of it. It's just the ability for them to be able to say, hey, I'll take care of this for you. What can I do? How can I help? So I look at each week that we do these and I think, wow, this is just really a great example of if I was running my own business, how and why would I want to empower my employees and what type of return would that give me in my business, in my company? So it's pretty amazing.
It's interesting. As I'm just thinking of examples in my own life or just from movies and stuff like that, I think of like butlers. And of course the one that comes to my mind is Alfred from Batman, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a friend as much as he is a hired employee sort of thing, And what I get from that is, and that's the biggest thing I feel like the Ritz-Carlton tries to show, it's not what we do, but it's who we are. Anyone can just be a butler. Anyone can just be a service person. Anyone can just do that. but we're going beyond that. We're turning you into a lady and a gentleman. And that's their biggest thing. And we talk about the empowered employees. That's who they are. They suddenly become a part of the class of the people coming to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. Like, we are one and the same. I can understand. I can relate to you. I will treat you with respect if you return it to me. And I think as you begin to develop that, it just makes for better people. And that's why we see the idea of trusting people, as you mentioned, from the top down. And that allows us to be able to just be happy with our lives. You know, if that's the kind of person we are, someone who's respectful and honest and hardworking, those are all qualities that make people have the self-confidence to be successful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I really liked what you guys were saying about that. I think that's kind of one thing that I've tried to focus on a lot. In like the past couple case studies, actually, was just, you know, um, rather than relying on a single process, kind of relying on, the teammates or team members that, have been trained well enough and have that trust, and, you're basically giving them credibility so that they can, perform to the best of their ability. And I think one of the things I touched on too was I really loved the example in a few cases back about Nordstrom's, how they have, their single rule is to just use your best judgment. And I think that goes along with what you were talking about as well, Adam. If people feel that they're in that position where they, they can meet the customer's demand, I feel like they're going to be really, really careful in that situation, because they feel like, they're they're the face of Nordstrom at that point. So yeah, I agree with you. They're not going to go out and, tell the customer, okay, we're going to give you, a couple $1,000s of free stuff, just because that you were wronged in this way. I think that's really what makes the difference to me is, being a part of that company as opposed to simply just working for them, and I feel like so many times you get disgruntled employees, who just start doing things here and there that kind of take away from the overall experience. But I think that's why the Ritz-Carlton is so prosperous, is because they really feel like they're part of that team, and their culture is just really strong. So I did do a little bit more research too, and I found the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Center. So they had a blog from 2015. I guess it gives a little bit of insight into their process still, but they said on day 3 they have their employees get up in front of the group and be able to and recite their credo. So I'm just wondering, from the case study, was that part of the original plan? Like doing that?
That's consistent with the speed they were moving at.
Oh, okay.
So that's consistent.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, this article, it was a blog post from their leadership center from 2015. So I guess just based on that, it sounds like things kind of stayed the same.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, Dallin, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you have any final thoughts?
No. I could think of it was the first case brief where it really seemed like they were doing things right.
I agree.
Yeah, only at the end they slipped in one possible concern, but it just, I don't know. It was just basically just telling what they did with other hotels, so just, yeah, nothing I could think of to bring up about it.
All right. Cool. Well, I think we can all agree then, in summary, that we feel it's best for the Ritz-Carlton to keep doing what they're doing. We agree that they have credentials in the essence of they have a proven track record of it being successful. We see a company that shows good ethics and morals from the top down, being honest and open and trusting. And all of these factors contribute to creating the ladies and gentlemen to associate with the customers themselves. And if I understand it, are we in agreement with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to call it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast, and then we can talk about it next week.
Alrighty.